See, this is back to, oh, these words did not exist before they when they wrote this letter. It's because they coined the terms. They're the ones, these provocateurs, these agentors, coined the terms as well. Like, what would they call that? Neuro linguistic programming, mind controls. And so that's the same for how they came up with these words spring. And I'm like, these systems must really work, or people just walk away out of fear, like they're not going to confront it or even talk about it maybe. But as soon as they come out, to me, it's such an insult of the intelligence to be watching these mainstream news sources that you watched be set up right in front of your face in early 2000 to mind control us with an agenda, to 24/7 mind control us. They're coming out now, like 10 years later, with all of these names of new movements that happen to be extremely violent, extremely destabilizing, and there it's a spring, it's going to be riots, it's going to be protests, and it's like they're doing it right in front of our face, and they're putting a name to it. So giving it a name like Arab Spring, do you never think, like, where did Arab Spring come from, and why are we doing it? Like, why are we going to whole entire other countries and just completely getting rid of the people that have been there for decades? I'm wondering how many people can see this was a plan, this was a planned agenda. They're probably doing it for a reason that's not going to end up very well in the long run. Doing unmitigated violence. It just left me wondering, like, how many people could see how much of this, like how much of it I'm not seeing. So they're still coming up with names for things. They're still coming up with names for operations, right? They're still coming up with plans for movements, and I'm wondering if they're getting them in dreams and seances and rituals. Probably so. Probably from the same dark sources. This has deliberately changed the world toward World War III and other collapses and shifts toward the Antichrist system. So, one of the things I wanted to stop and explain here probably does not need to be explained to a lot of people, maybe. The Diddy trials, and there's so much you could get into with that, guys. I found out that a former corrupted government official, their family is over this trial. Not going to go into who, how, and what. And so that kind of explains to you how there's probably other such people in control of the trial, making it to where only certain information will be released, only certain things will actually be investigated or brought to light, and other things will be hidden. So there's a lot of mystery with this trial. I have not been paying attention to it lately. But when I heard certain stories, and this goes back into how I was attacked, right, by this evil so called preacher, there, sometimes I get a glimpse of people that are living in realms of pride or just different realms, right? Some people who are watching my videos or someone like me or videos like this may get a glimpse of what it's like to be like us or be in our world or understand the things we do or think like us. Sometimes when you're watching another person's life or some aspect of their life or you hear about it, and I probably try to analyze these things too much, but sometimes when that's happening, you even start feeling like what's going on with them. And maybe that's especially true for like motherly people that are supposed to be guards and watching over the children and whatnot. But sometimes you can just feel, you get a glimpse of a feeling of what that's like, and you're like, whoa, either for the good or for the bad, right? Sometimes, like we've even seen videos of what he's done to people that have come out. But sometimes when I get glimpses or explanations, especially firsthand witness of people who came out on their own onto the YouTube and the social media and explained what it was like, what they witnessed when they were actually at the party, I'll get this feeling of what it's like to have given yourself over to evil, if you will. A very, very dark and different world than a lot of us live in, hopefully. But sometimes just like, okay, like this person who attacked me, these are the kind of anybody who becomes like a celebrity status, and they have certain lusts that they're looking to be fulfilled by that of power and pride and flatteries, connections with these people. getting to know these people and be like them and be with them and be associated with them, and to mistreat others in particular. A lot of times what comes with that, and it's the same, like it's the same for these celebrities, it's the same for a wicked preacher who's into wicked manipulations and controls, and it's a warning for anyone who is seeking anything even remotely like that. So kind of stay away from that, right? This goes with like a warning I've heard too of like a lot of like everyday people who just work hard and have humble little life situations and families will never even dream about some of this stuff. But just as soon as a society becomes decadent, decadent is probably the best description, you get a lot more of anybody who starts getting a little bit more into the realms of power, a little bit more into the realms of celebrity, have easy access to a certain level of these corruptions. And in the church, it's somewhere between corruption or leaven. A lot of corruption, really, these days. But I think the discussion that I wanted to stop and have here is you start even getting like the feeling, and so you kind of understand it better. Back to trauma-based mind control, sometimes when you get hit and attacked by that level, and this comes like by experience or by teaching, probably mostly by experience in life. Sometimes a lot of us, when we're like in naive land and we're just kind of idealistic and inexperienced, we will go into like snake pits and dens with these people, and we're thinking, well, surely they want what we do. We're not realizing how corrupted they've been for how long. They don't come from the same background as us. They didn't even want to, or why they have different motives. And so we go into these dens, and we're like, oh, they're self-sacrificial. They care. They have a level of maturity. They're godly. They're wise. They're hardworking. They care, and they want to share like I do, and they would be selfless to a certain degree to share. Like nobody's perfect, but some people just have an excess giving. The givers and the takers, the narcissists or the empaths. There's different theories on it, and you can be so idealistic and new to things, and you're thinking you're not realizing this is now this celebrity status, and you get certain little red flags here and there, such as the flatteries that go between people, certain things they say, certain ways that they treat people. It's the exact same as, quote, dating a narcissist as it is going to a church. As you start getting these little hints that they're not quite, this is a red flag of they're in a different realm. It's depths and depths to it. But sometimes you can just get that the Cliff Note version of they stay in a different realm. They have different feelings. They live in different feelings. They're drunk on it. It's a lot of drunkenness and high selfishness. And so I was getting the same experience by studying or noticing the Diddy situations as I was by this celebrity narcissist preacher thing that's going on in the churches. I would hear people explain these parties that they went to and how they got mistreated there and how they were being coerced there and bad things were happening all around them and they escaped. And they were talking about they looked over and they saw what they called little people, right? Like 8, 9 years old, how they were dressed, what was happening all around these little people. They were stranded. There were no parents around. It was obviously a bad situation. Something about them just describing that environment was giving me this feeling of some people just have this attitude like they would own those other little people. They owned them, and it was just part of a realm and a world of lawlessness and above law and power. You can't put those things into words. But this feeling that I got of like, okay, and you guys may do it better than me because I think I'm too cerebral for some of this. The gut thing of like, and like the girl that was describing it, she said, this is some Hollywood stuff here. I'm leaving. And so the gut feeling that you would have in that situation is now you're in you are not in Kansas anymore. Okay. This is different on purpose. It's different on purpose to brag about being very different and being, maybe even to scare people or scare their enemies or whatever, to be proud of being ignorant sometimes or whatever. So this is the same feeling I get though whenever I'm thinking about these ministers and they get into this echelon, and you have to be kind of a weak, low person, a little person, to be caught up with this kind of mess. You have to be very little. Not You haven't grown much. You don't have a lot of security and a lot of things going on for you. It's a lot. Like I don't just believe in like criticizing and hating as much as pointing it out when it's a murderer, when it will harm you greatly and others too. That beware of any power structure or any, just know what it is. I'm not going to tell you how to act around it. Know what it is so you'll know how to act around it and pray about it. Of even in the churches, there can be like these power structures of preachers that go around. It's about flattery and name dropping and power tripping and who knows who and connected to who and who said what and how they were dressed and how they talked and who got to preach in whose pulpit and how they smeared people who said something against them. It becomes a power realm, and a lot of there's different words for it, like social status, and but there's a cloud and a realm. I would even want to say the biblical term of prince and the power of the air has that too, right? It's not godly. God is far from the proud. God's far away from that. But I'm not going to go off like on the person who attacked me again as much as to say this is interesting and it affects a lot of people. This is the kind of thing I love to expose and talk about. The little people who are paying the tithes and who are reading about hellfire, and they're trying to be humble and obedient and walk in the fear of God. And God's very angry when his sheep keep getting like terribly abused by these power trippers. I wonder too, in what is probably coming to America in about 2 years, I wonder if this phenomenon I'm talking about in the pulpits is about to be handled. When we see who is doing it for the money and who's not, who's still there when the money's not there, in the pulpits, praying, serving, going to church, caring for people, saying the gospel of Jesus Christ, preaching the gospel, preaching repentance, baptizing, when they're not getting paid, when they're getting snitched on even. But anyway, it even gets into like how they traveled, what kind of car they have, what kind of house they live in, and all of it that you hear in any kind of corruption and the things that corrupt people. That a lot of times they will keep any drugs that's going on there will be prescription and hidden, and affairs will probably be hidden one way or another. There's different ways to do that. It's a very deep topic, but I thought that was just an interesting thing of our time is these power centers, and when you're a person that you kind of walk into your own realm. I guess no matter who you are, you have your own world and your own realm. That's where projection comes in. So it can be really hard. Perspective taking can be hard when it's so foreign, when you're putting yourself over into the other person's shoes, not just to empathize with them, but to appreciate danger. Yep, a lot of people have to be kind of burned by these kind of things to actually see anywhere come close to anywhere to seeing through it or seeing it for what it is. But it's a real thing. But it did help me. Like I was having a discussion with a friend actually, and we were talking about just the lifestyle, the whole different lifestyle that these people live. And I think the Bible has different words for it, like their belly is their God. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have a really big belly and they go around eating everything and they're addicted to food or gluttony as much, I don't think, as it means this idea of to live those lifestyles, you've made certain choices. You've made certain extreme selfish choices. And the choices that you have not made are going to be choices like an importance of the fear of God and the truth, an importance of the gospel, a true importance of salvation, not just I'm so emotional that I'm ideologically in love with the idea of people generally getting saved a lot, and especially when my name's attached to it and it's about me and everybody knows that I'm the one. And but I mean, people can be, in other words, it's not just always about they're promoting themselves and their name, their title, position, role, status, glory, money. Sometimes they are emotionally rewarded by personally and privately by seeing someone, but they're still a raging narcissist. That's where people get tricked. Just because they have one or two good things that can be used by God does not mean that they do not have this huge, horrific damaging thing that needs to be protected from. But just living in a whole different realm that has to do with power, prideful, very prideful decisions that were made. That they're going to get their attention. They're going to put their name out there. They've justified their actions. They've justified their behaviors. They've crossed lines. After a while, they stop being openly punished, and that's what frustrates a lot of people. They're like, "Where's God in this? Is He even approving them?" But there's a lot of mystery in that. Like that has to do with judgment. Just someone walking in this whole other power, pride, addiction realm that you can't imagine in your hardworking, honest, giving life. It's hard for you to imagine how selfish they're being, how power tripping they're being, how they've excused it all, how they're a victim. Poor pitiful them. And they have a right to step on your face. They won't fight to get out of that trap. They won't pray. They won't care. They deserve it. They've earned it. They've crossed lines and lines and lines. That's when it talks about a seared conscience. They've crossed lines where they're owed, they deserve, on and on. So, anyway, I just wanted to kind of talk about how different another realm can be and how the similarities between Diddy and wicked preachers, even. There's a lot of different versions, though, of celebrity and celebrity status, idolatry, and worship. So the next thing that I had planned to talk to you guys about was this was a note that I posted when they had the April 8th last year eclipse across North America. That was the X eclipse.